Welcome back to the Mirror Project. We're your hosts, Alexandra,
And Christine.
and we're diving into a topic that is super relatable but not talked about enough: making friends as an adult. And yes, we are calling this one, Do You Want to Be My Friend? No, seriously, because let's be real, it can feel just as awkward as it sounds. Gone are the days when making friends was as simple as sitting next to somebody in class or sharing a snack at lunch. As adults, between work, life, and everything in between, building new connections feels a whole new challenge. Why is it so hard? Why does it feel weird just to ask somebody to hang out? And most importantly, how do we even start? In today's episode, we're unpacking all of that. We'll talk about why making friends as adults feels so different, share some ideas on how we plan to put ourselves out there. So, if you've ever found yourself wondering, how do I even make friends at this stage in life? You are definitely not alone, and this episode is for you. Let's get into it.
Before we delve into today's riveting topic, make sure to hit that subscribe or follow button on your preferred listening platform. Take a moment to do it now before it slips your mind. Trust us, we're not getting started without you. Let's make this journey together.
So, the difficulty of making friends as an adult. Christine.
Yes. Where do we even start?
Where do we start?
I don't know. It's hard.
It is hard. Man, adulting is so hard.
It's so hard. And I tell you what, this is something that struck me recently, and it's really true. The difficulty we face making friends as an adult is something I never really thought about before. But now that I'm here, how do we do it?
I mean, and particularly after last week's conversation where we were talking about letting go of friends, well, now you've let go of friendships with their space in your life to let new people in. That's scary.
I know.
It was hard enough when we were kids.
It is.
When we were in environments where it was more conducive
Constantly.
to making
Yeah.
friends.
And
Let alone out here in the wild.
Yeah. And speaking on that, I think let's link down in the show notes. There's a great clip. Maybe we'll even link the whole episode. We mentioned our love for Mel Robbins in the last episode, but there's another clip that we came across of hers that so beautifully puts into words the struggle we all face and how she sort of like puts into perspective making how easy, like the situation of making friends as a kid versus as an adult. She talks about this idea of once you graduate and start working, the great scattering begins where all your friend group ends up at maybe all across the country. And I think ultimately we need to shift our idea and our expectations on what it means to make a friend as an adult, right?
Yeah.
The rules aren't the same.
No.
Do
And
you
to
agree?
operate by the rules that worked when we were kids is
Well,
not
that's
going to set us up well.
true. But I think there is a takeaway. I feel like it can be a lot easier than we think. As a kid,
True.
you just sort of you say, "Oh, you want to be my friend?" Yeah. Okay, now we're friends. I think that can be something we incorporate into, like, we don't have to overthink it. I think is
Like Christine. But
overthinker
that's
over
what we
here.
do.
I know. Bad. Yeah.
But you're right. Maybe it is as simple as just asking somebody, hey, do you want to be my friend?
I don't know. Yeah. I think also, I know sometimes when it comes to setting expectations, I think like you got to allow grace for people. Being an adult is hard, as we now know. There's so many things you have to juggle, and then also like once you're out of school, everybody's on a different track, and some are moving faster than others. Some are getting married, having kids. You start working. You're in an environment of all ages, all different stages of life. So the people you spend the most time with are the people you're working with, but it's hard to grow those relationships because of the commitments they have outside of work. They have families or people to take care of, or whatever the case may be. So I think I've been sort of coming to terms with the fact that what it means to be a friend as an adult is way different, and it's just something I need to learn more about. Maybe, I guess. I don't know. What do you think?
So, I definitely agree. I will say, I think I have made some headway in this past fall. There was some friendships I did kind of start anew, and but you're right. Like when I first moved here, and I know I mentioned this last episode, just kind of feeling lost and not really having a community. And like I didn't have a job right away, so like I didn't have that place to go to either and develop relationships with coworkers. So it is very difficult, particularly if, after you said what Mel Robbins called the great scattering. Like not only are your friends going in different directions, like maybe you've moved somewhere new, and it is just sometimes really hard to start over. I think it can feel really lonely. And I think I kind of got stuck in that loneliness. So, and, as we've established, get up in my own head, think, oh, people think I'm too weird or too different or, something, or they're not going to like me. So you don't
Mhm.
try. Um, so I think that's what yeah, trying, putting yourself out there, being okay being awkward or weird or, you know, somebody saying, yeah, that person is not for me. We're not friends. And just having that be okay. So,
Mm,
and it's very interesting because I mentioned my sister had moved down here for law school, and that's a very different thing. So she was moving to a state she had never lived in before either, but she was in an environment where people were probably at different stages in life, like when you come to law school, but also probably looking for like study groups and people to hang out with and building connections. So you're already, it's like another chance at university. Like you're in an environment in person where you're doing that. Whereas with my second graduate degree, it was an all online program and I made connections with people, but it's very different than being sitting in a classroom with people or
mm,
being in an environment in which you're with people are of a similar interest and stage and stuff. So, but like you said, Christine, it is like I've got some really wonderful coworkers and great relationships with them, but it is very different because I don't necessarily see them outside of work all the time.
right.
So,
Yeah.
man, I feel like they did not prepare us for making
No.
friends as adults when we were kids.
Well, I also feel society has evolved, right? Like I saw something recently. I mean, this is more about dating, but I think it also lends to building community and making friends. 100 years ago, there were like community events that you would go to, like in your neighborhood, like dances, or if you are a religious person and went to church, or, you know, the, your parents would introduce you to their friend's child, and like it was the way people interacted was is was so different than it is now. Like everything's virtual, everything's social
Mm-hmm.
media is like the biggest form of connection people have, and in a lot of ways it's a great tool. In a lot of ways it's pretty detrimental to, I think, society as a whole.
That's a whole other conversation. Oh my
Yes,
gosh,
it
that
is.
could be a whole long conversation.
But I feel like I'm sort of at a point where I need to discover new ways to meet new people. Because don't get me wrong, I have wonderful friends, a great close knit group of people who I know I can call at 2 o'clock in the morning. Maybe. Maybe this
Like,
one over here.
I'm like, yeah, you're looking at me. She's like, maybe not,
Maybe.
Alexandra.
I know I'll call her when she's awake.
Which would be at like 5:30, but like two
True.
o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
it's probably hit her. I could call Christine at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then she'd be like, "Why are you calling me? What's
Yes.
wrong?"
You're awake.
Uh,
No, I all in jest. But like I have those people who I know I can call no matter what, and I can count on to be there for me. But at the same time, there's a lot of room for growth, I think, for everybody to sort of explore different areas of interest that may not necessarily align with the current relationships I have, but figuring out how to take that first step, try and meet new people. It's hard to do. Hard to put yourself out there. Yeah.
I'm laughing because Christine and I send a lot of videos back to each other, back and forth on Instagram, and we have a similar taste in books. Um,
Yes.
and I have another friend who has the same similar taste in at least part of the book she likes. And I was just thinking, I wonder if there is like Smut Readers Anonymous, like where you can go and make friends or something.
Probably. I
um,
mean,
like that would be a great place for us to go because like I'd be like, oh yeah, these are my people, they get
yeah.
it. But yeah,
Yeah.
finding those roots of what you enjoy doing and building connections out of those because it is very different than the past where your social circle could be expanded by your parents introducing you to, people and beyond.
I think for me also, I just have never really gelled with the thought of building community online.
Yeah,
I've met people throughout my life who have friends, like they have a whole group of friends that they've met through the internet, and I'm like, wow. And I don't know if that's because I sort of got introduced to it later in life. I didn't have any sort of social media until I was in high school. And even then, it wasn't something I was necessarily investing a lot of my time into.
right.
So I wasn't really meeting new people. I was just staying in contact with the people that I see all the freaking time. So yeah, where do we go from here? It's so difficult. How do we move forward? How do we make this easier for ourselves? Any thoughts, Alexandra?
Well, kind of. And it struck me this past fall, and I think I mentioned it to you on one of our phone calls that making friends as an adult seems a little bit like the other dating to me. Like,
Mm, yeah,
yeah, we all know about dating to meet your person or to meet your next hookup, whatever. But like in some sense, finding and making friends as an adult is a little bit like dating. Um, there's the awkward moment of, "Hey, nice to meet you," whether it's online or like introduction, and then to like, do you want to go get some coffee and see if this is gonna work out? Do we have enough similar interests to be to be friends? And then, kind of somewhat setting those expectations. Like, what is this relationship and friendship gonna look like? So anyways, that kind of struck me as a little bit funny, but also somewhat kind of true. That's you're almost like,
yeah.
hey, is it gonna work? And you sometimes go on one date with a friend, and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, this is not gonna go anywhere. Another one's just, yeah, let's be friends forever now. So, what do you think, Christine?
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that for sure. I don't know, I don't have much experience in that realm yet, but it's definitely I mentioned on an earlier episode this year, a goal of mine is to try and make new friends, meet new people, grow my circle. So I'll have to share some stories in the future. But I think also the easiest place to start, as you said, is figuring out what your interests are. And then from
Mhm.
there, seeing where that could take you and who that can introduce you to. And I think something that I'll need to work on is like stepping outside of my comfort zone and taking that first step of going somewhere by myself solo. I never do that. I usually go with at least one buddy just because I have that sort of safety blanket. But then does that prohibit me from meeting new people? Potentially,
Possibly.
possibly. It certainly would limit me meeting multiple new people at once. Like maybe if I'm going with a friend, I might only introduce myself to one or two people. But I think like it would be a good exercise, character exercise to push yourself to go solo. I think also like I live in a wonderful, vibrant community and I really haven't been a whole lot of part of it beyond, like supporting local businesses, going out to restaurants, but there's always something going on that, for one reason or another, I just hasn't worked out. But
Mhm.
I think you also need to make the effort to try and go to go there, go and put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think for me, a couple examples where I had some clients who've turned into friends, and I would just,
Mhm.
even through the conversation, like, wow, you're really interesting. Cool. You want to catch up and get coffee? And then I had a friend of mine introduce me saying, hey, I know somebody. I think you would you guys would make really good friends. And so she kind of connected with us. And then I briefly met her for a moment. She gave me her card, I gave her my card, and then we exchanged numbers. And it was like, hey, yeah, like we actually went and grabbed a cup of coffee. And towards the end of it, we were talking for 2 or 3 hours. And I was like, you're really cool, and I hate to cut this short, but I do have to go work on a paper. I'd love to be friends. What are your expectations of friendships and that kind of stuff? And that went into, I have a whole spiel about like how I am a terrible texter, which Christine can tell you that I there are moments where I
Yeah.
am
I just call
awful.
you. Just
Yeah, she's
call
like, all
her
right.
or
So
send a voice memo.
yeah, I actually love that we're doing that now, that we're sending voice memos. I think that would be a really fun way to for like new friends, just sending voice memos. But it was kind of fun. It was awkward. It was just it really was a moment of, "Hey, you seem cool. Do you want to be my friend?" And it worked. So maybe it's not as hard as we were making it out to be a little bit away.
Yeah, I think the
It's hard
stakes
to
are
put yourself out there.
definitely what?
Certainly
Sorry.
hard to put yourself out there.
Yeah,
But
certainly
really,
hard to put yourself out there. Stakes, I think, are lower than, say, dating.
mhm, mhm,
Because of the
100%.
great thing is like the worst thing that could happen is you met somebody you wouldn't have otherwise met and you wish them the best and let them go on their way. But yeah, definitely. I think he knows, at least in my case, I need to get out of my own way and just
Yeah.
try. And sometimes trying is really scary because you don't know what's going to happen. But I think there's also some beauty in that too. So, yeah.
So, what would be some good friend dates to go on, like with new people that you don't really know a whole lot about? What do you think, Christine?
Well, I think like I'm always a fan of an activity. So whether that's you invite people over for a game night or you go, if you've, again, figure out what your common interests are. And then from there, you can go to, I don't know, an exhibit at a museum. Or I tend to like activity, like gaming activities, going to an escape room. Or
Mhm.
I think it also can sort of reveal to you a lot about their character and vice versa.
True.
They'll learn a lot about you. I wouldn't say I'm the most competitive person in the world, but I like a good game. I like a good. So those are sort of the things I would be drawn to. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I like that. I like the games. I'd also say, because, I'm a fan of coffee, maybe if there's a downtown area, like a coffee shop, and then go and kind of see what stores like they are interested or drawn into, or because then you can talk, and then you can talk about a bunch of different things that you see as you're walking in a downtown area. You could talk about like a local bookstore or a vintage shop or anything that you're like, wow, I like that kind of store because I really like jewelry. Or
Mhm.
you can learn about people based on what you kind of come across versus staying solely in a coffee shop. And I think sometimes with the right people and the right friends, conversations just click, and so then it kind of naturally evolves. Um, Whereas sometimes other times it is, if conversation is difficult and stilted, I would say that's an indication of maybe, could be an interesting conversation, but it may not develop into a total friendship. So, I think, like you said, being in an environment where you're seeing something new and you're both experiencing something, that can be a great way to kind of get to know somebody more than just like, hey, this is who I am.
Right. Because
Yeah.
I'm definitely of the belief that people show you who they are, like better than tell you who they are. So, yeah, I think experiencing things together is the best and quickest way to sort of really get to know somebody. I think also sharing things or places with them that mean something to you and vice versa. Have them introduce you to something that you may not otherwise experience before.
Mhm.
I mean, I think a lot of what we're saying also can overlap nicely with dating, but
If you
but
want
I
a low stakes place to practice.
make new friends,
Yeah.
everybody. That's where you can practice your moves. All right, Christine, calm down. Yeah, I think also like anything in life, embrace the awkwardness, embrace the silliness.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah. Try not to take yourself too seriously.
Yeah,
There's a
taking
time and a
offense
place
is
for it.
hard.
I know, but there's a time and a place for all of that, obviously. But I think when you're starting out,
That's true.
try and remember what it's like to be a kid again, maybe.
Yeah. And putting yourself in environments and places where you could meet new people, like Christine said.
Yeah. I think I definitely want to try and sort of see locally what sort of meetups there are for areas of interest. Like, I love to do board games. I love reading. I love being outdoors, the beach, hiking. I love
Yeah.
going to the theater. Like art is really big for me. So I'm certain that's certainly nothing new, or and there's many people in out there who probably share those interests as well. So I think too there are apps out there that are interest based specifically, so you
Hmm.
can sort of like set your location, set your interests, and it'll sort of populate different groups, and you can set meetups and things like that. So maybe that's something I would look into too,
Yeah,
if
that
I'm
sounds fun.
struggling to sort of find something locally. But
It kind of
yeah,
makes me think of, do you remember when the Bumble app came out with like Bumble BFF?
I do. Yeah, I think that's still a thing.
Isn't it? It was such a weird. I think it came out that feature or function came out when we were in college, and it was. I remember being so weird because it was like everyone kind of went into the same pool of connections.
Sure.
And then it was like, wait, where is this? Who? What? Trying to? And then they came out with Bumble Biz, and I was like, now I'm really confused at what this app was doing. Um,
Well, I know that for my sister, when she relocated to Nashville, she used Bumble BFF to sort of try and meet new people, and
okay.
it helped her sort of establish a a group of friends outside of who she probably like her roommate, her boyfriend, like things like that. So
Yeah. But I like your idea of the other one, the apps that are interest based. So if you
yeah,
come across any, I know I've
yeah,
seen on like social media, there was a couple for, I don't remember what it was, but it was like setting up dinners between five random people. They were for dating, but it was just to meet new people. But it
yeah.
seems like it would be more
I've seen those.
functional in larger cities, which is not really where I'm at.
Right. Yeah, I think
So
I've seen stuff like that in New York City, which I'm obviously close to. But
yeah,
yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from this is I just sort of got to rethink how you approach relationships and friendships as an adult. Craving more of our company? Join the fun over on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Mirror Project Pod. Dive deeper into our world and engage with us on a whole new level. Don't miss out on the excitement.
so Christine,
Yeah.
what are some ideas, like actionable ideas that you plan to take the next like month or so to try and make new friends?
Hmm. Excellent question. Well, the next month or so, I've already got some plans on the weekend that are going to introduce me to a group of people that I haven't met before. I've been
Okay.
invited to things through a friend, like a mutual friend, but I'm not going to know everybody who's there. So mm, a, I think a goal for me would be to try and strike up conversation with new people that I meet at these functions, see if we vibe, if we want to, stay in touch and go from there. The one of the things is out of state. So those people I meet will also be from out of state. But if anything, it's a good exercise to practice.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and then I think I want to do some research into what sort of things are happening locally that I can go to. They're up the street. I've been meaning to check out their community events. There's a business called House Freya in the metaphysical space. They do events all the time, you know, sound healing, different sort of spiritual work, sort of workshops and things like that that I've been wanting to go to. Timing wise, just hasn't always worked out. But I think since we're freshly in a new month of the year, see what if my schedule aligns with anything and try and check out some of those events as well. Yeah, yeah, I think those are pretty actionable for the for this next
Yeah,
month.
absolutely.
What about you? What are you gonna do?
Well, I'm actually trying to get a group of people together, of people I know, but I think that they would all make really good friends. So that's something I'm working on coordinating. But outside of that, maybe like a book club, or, the thing is, I really do need to do a lot of reading on different research reading kind of thing. I am trying to write a book on, as I know Christine knows, tarot, not so much on the history, but like how to begin reading. And so I'm trying to look at what others have written and maybe where I feel gaps might be so that I can write the book that I would have found really helpful when I was learning.
Mm, mhm,
Um, and maybe instead of doing that at home in my desk space here, maybe I'll go out to a coffee shop and just have one AirPod in and one ear with music and leave the other one open and be hopefully a bit more open faced, not so much RBF that I can sometimes get into, and just kind of being open for conversation. And maybe somebody will see my books and go, oh, hey, that's really interesting, and come strike a conversation. Um,
true.
and I think some of the newer friends that I have, working with them to maybe set up and do things that where we can interact with other people, like Christine said, sometimes having a buddy makes it helpful, and maybe
Mm,
having one person to go to something new with would be super a little bit easier. Somebody, but then like you can both go introduce yourselves to other people at an event. So there's a couple people I know who would be really good support systems for that, and it would be super helpful. But maybe
yeah,
like a book club or two or something, because I really like reading, and somewhere you can go and discuss books. And I was like,
absolutely.
yeah. So
Yeah, I think I would love to join a book club too. I One of the things I've been really enjoying this year is I have been reading a lot. I've been reading almost every day. I want to try and keep that up. So if I could find a group of people to sort of explore that shared interest with, I definitely think one that will keep me going, keep me reading
yeah,
every day. But also just I experience all these things when I read a book, and it would be great to talk to somebody about it. I know Alex and I do that ourselves, and we have talked about maybe doing a sort of mini book club with our listeners here. If that's something you all would be interested in being a part of, let us know. But yeah, I think
yes.
that's a really great place to start because I think a lot of people are. It's certainly a popular thing to be doing right now. There's book
And it,
talk. Book talk has sort of blown up and sort of made reading cool again.
and it certainly gives you a place from which to start in building friendships. Like it gives you something that you're both interested into, especially if people come from it like not knowing each other, like you're
Mm,
there for a reason and it's something you already have in common. So that's a great way to build connection.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was fun. I like this conversation. I think this would be something to revisit and
Mhm.
maybe not make a whole episode about it, but we'll just like down the line do a little check in and sort of see how this has changed since we
Yeah.
first started talking about it. Yeah. All right. Anything
Alrighty.
else? You have
No, I
anything?
think that's it. I
All
think we've
right.
talked about the awkwardness, kind of getting out of your own head, not taking yourself too seriously, finding your things that
Certainly.
interest you, and trying to find connections out of things that you are interested in seems like a
Mm,
really great way to start friendships.
absolutely. Awesome. All right. Well, that's a wrap. On today's conversation, everybody, if there's one thing we've learned, it's that we're all in the same boat, wanting connection, but sometimes feeling a little awkward about how to make that happen. But just like with anything else, putting ourselves out there is step number one. So let's challenge ourselves and you to be a little braver, send that text, make that invite, or even strike up a conversation with somebody new. You never know where a simple, hey, do you want to grab coffee? Could lead. As always, we'd love to hear from you. How do you approach making new friends as an adult? Let us know your thoughts, your struggles, and your wins. We love wins here. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It really helps us keep the conversation going. Until next time, thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye!
Bye, guys!
Are you enjoying the banter and insights we're serving up? If so, consider tossing some support our way through our Buy Us a Coffee page. Every bit helps in fueling this passion project of ours. Find the link in our show notes and visit our Linktree. We are immensely grateful for your generosity. As we wrap up, remember to hit that like, subscribe, or follow button on your preferred platform. Until next time, let's keep the conversations going, and we'll catch you on the next episode.